Hey, family, and welcome to the Critical Sense Making Sessions facilitated by yours truly, Revolutionary Rika. Today's episode is episode 24. Today's topic is Unlearning to Learn. Today's guest is Kimberly Bozeman. She is a Lodi resident who is passionate about politics, sports, and coffee. Kim, tell us a little bit more about who you are and choose one word to describe how you're showing up.
Well, I'm just, I'm a woman that's had a lot of experiences. I live in Lodi. I've been through a lot and I love people. Just trying to do my part to, bring awareness to a lot of things that's going on in our world. But at the same time, trying to heal myself from experiences that I've had in my childhood that has shaped me and just trying to move forward with positive intentions and not letting the world knock me down.
Awesome. And choose one word to describe how you're showing up.
I'm nervous and a little bit, disorganized, but sometimes there is beauty in the chaos.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for agreeing to be on Critical Sense Making Sessions. And I have an icebreaker question. And I just want to know, what did you learn about yourself in 2020?
Whew. Um, that's a great question. I think I learned that I am relentless in my pursuit of excellence. I'm relentless and um, I'm human. I'm
Yes,
human.
yes, absolutely. In a world where we are pressed on all sides to move at the speed of whiteness, relentless can look different ways. So I appreciate you saying that. And not when, because I have all these deadlines and because you think that we can move everything online and everything can still be done in the same way. Being relentless about creating self-care for myself. I'm just chiming off of you. Relentless on actually thinking about how do I create my own path forward. So I appreciate you sharing that word as how you're showing up.
Thank you.
We're going to jump right into our first set of questions, and I would love to learn about life growing up for the Bay Area.
So I grew up in actually Oakland. I was born in Berkeley at Alta Bates Hospital. I had a very traumatic childhood. I don't I don't know my father. My mom was a single mom. For the first maybe 8 years, I had kind of a normal childhood. My mom had a previous partner who she was with and they raised me. When I was 11, they separated. And that's when life got hard. He was pretty much the main provider. We went through some periods of homelessness, sleeping in our car. Um, then my mom, she was never physically abusive, but she was very verbally abusive. And just living from house to house, experiencing a lot of bad things while we were displaced. I didn't really do very well in high school. I wasn't really popular. I was like the fat cheerleader. And I kind of always struggled with my confidence. I barely graduated high school. I grew up thinking that I was very, very stupid. But when after I graduated high school, I always seemed to find success in corporate America. And, late years later, I just realized that the abuse that I had endured as a child had really shaped me as a woman. And then it's been this constant journey of how do I shed that, right? Because when you're told every day that you are stupid and you're ignorant and you won't amount to anything, those words have power, especially to, a young child. And so my childhood, I always say sometimes that I've been through everything. There's nothing from health challenges to, like I was saying, abuse to homelessness. And that's what shaped the woman that is sitting here with you.
Mhm. Well, thank you for sharing and being transparent about just your journey. Every time I saw you, I did not see what you described. I definitely saw an intelligent Black girl in those spaces and thought you were actually really smart. And it showed in the way that you responded in some of our classes that we had together. But definitely, I appreciate you for being honest and sharing your story. So, thinking back on your childhood, what is one lesson you learned that is still applicable today?
No one owes you anything. If you want something, you have to work for it.
Mhm, mhm.
I think that entitlement is a hell of a thing, if you excuse my French, right? We grew, I saw a lot of people being handed things, right? Whether it was handed a car, handed a scholarship. I mean, not actually you work for a scholarship, but you see what I mean. Opportunities just sometimes fall in people's laps. And work and dedication is one thing, but sometimes people are just, they're just exposed to a different life. And my mom, for everything that we went through, the one thing that I am so grateful that she instilled in me was a hard work ethic. I saw her work 2, 3 jobs. I saw her get up and show up every day, whether she was sick, whether she could barely walk. I mean, she's 65 years old. She's still getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to work in the warehouse at Macy's. So, I remember her telling me, no one owes you anything. You have to work for it. And, that's even more applicable today as we look as a society, right? And we think about where we are and what things we're going through, you know, um, we have to still continue to work hard. I mean, if I'm being honest, yeah. Do I believe society owes us something? Absolutely. But they're not going to give it.
Mhm,
And so we
mhm.
can't give up. We have to continue to work hard and show up, but also just kind of reject the mindset of like go 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 go, right? We live in this thing, like, I hate that stupid meme, if you haven't come out of the pandemic with this or that, then you're this. And it's like, no, sometimes just existing is showing up, right? Is existing and being present is being relentless and working hard. So that's what I would say.
I love that. And I think just to piggyback off what you just said, I feel like because people want to see tangibles, right? And so because you may not be showing that, they feel like you're not, like they put their project their goals of their ideas of success on you. And so if they don't see these things, then you're not doing anything. But a lot of times it's you retreating inside to, like you talked about, and to the topic, unlearning what we've learned, because a lot of that has kept us stagnant. It has put us in jobs that we hate going to. We are doing or around people that we really don't like sometimes, or that we are not compatible with, because this is what the world is saying. Oh, you need to surround yourself with these type of people and this person, and you should be connected to this person. And so hearing you say that just really made me think about, yeah, working hard is going to look different at different stages in your life. Sometimes working hard is going inward to undo and get rid of all the toxicity that exists and the behaviors that have us oppress our own people when we get in positions of power, because we learn the culture of power, right? So definitely can connect to what you're saying about that, the work ethic, but then also kind of redefining for yourself, like, what does that mean for me? It doesn't mean moving at the speed of whiteness, but it's also being resilient in times where I feel like giving up, right?
Right, absolutely. Oh man, I think that, I just want to say one thing in response to that, especially when you talk about figuring out who you are and letting go of what has been holding you back. For years, the mind we know is a powerful thing. The words that we speak and manifest over our own self. And it's like, I'm 43 years old and I'm just walking into that and not letting all of those things keep me pretty much within chains. And so it's sad. It's sad that what is professionalism has been defined by white people, and it's the stereo of white supremacy in corporate America, right? And when you talked about showing up to a job that you hate, right, we are taught that, oh, you should be lucky, oh, you got that job, you should be happy. And it's this fallacy that like we don't deserve more, we can't aspire to more, we can't demand and know like I am worth this, right? What makes Sally, she's worth this, I'm worth it too, right? And that's kind of the things that I'm still trying to work out, if I can be quite honest.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So, what is something you were taught that you no longer believe?
Oh man, there's so much.
Mhm.
I would say, if I go back to being stupid, that is something that I absolutely no longer believe. If you look at the education system, right, we know we all have where there's a lot of different learners. There's auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and you know, I didn't learn from reading, and so when I graduated high school, I believe my GPA was like 2.6, and also carrying the weight of the words of my grandmother and my mom, how stupid I was, or other people, that I believe that, and when later in life, when I decided that I wanted to pursue my undergraduate degree, that actually kept me back for so long, thinking I was stupid, I wasn't smart enough to get a degree. I remember when I was younger, and at the time, I was obsessed. I wanted to go to Michigan. Now, I wanted to go to Michigan, not because I knew anything about the school, because I was obsessed with the Fab Five, Chris Webber. And I remember someone telling me, get your head out of the clouds, you better go get a job.
Mm.
And that's what I did. And it was always in me, just speaking this negativity. And so fast forward, I go to college, and you have to take the assessment test because I started at the bottom. And I realized, though, through my work here's history, that I was an auditory learner. So then when I went to college, I started applying that. But I still had this mindset that was ingrained in me from school. If you don't read, you're stupid. And I'll never forget, I was taking my first sociology class, and I mentioned to my professor how I was struggling to read. And she said, "Well, why are you reading?" And I said, "Because that's what you have to do in college." And she said, "Well, who told you that? Because I have a PhD and I don't read. I don't learn from reading. So stop doing what doesn't work for you." And that, you know, just it sounds silly, but it gave me permission to just learn how I learned. And, fast forward, it took me 5 years, but I graduated summa cum laude, and I didn't read, and I think, intelligence is such a, again, society tells us this is what intelligence looks like. If you go to this school, if you have this job and this title, you're intelligent. But we all have different gifts, right? I still struggle with my grammar and my writing, but does that make me not intelligent? No. I mean, Stephen King was a horrible writer, he had to have help. So I mean, that was really something that was just really fed into me every day about how stupid I was. And even though I no longer believe it, it's absolutely something that I still wrestle with. And, right now I'm in the process of studying for a professional certification, and really kind of having to remind myself, like, you can accomplish anything. And even if you fail this test, it's not a reflection of your intelligence and your intellect. Because again, when you talk about education, right, and the lack of access and equity in our education, the words that are used in this made up English language that we're taught, like, oh, if you don't use it properly, you're this. And it's like, well, who got to set that standard? Who got to decide what speaking appropriately is, right? What is professional? Like, what are all of those things, right? It's this brainwashing that comes from white supremacy, and anyway, so just really processing that. I am intelligent, you're intelligent, we are all intelligent, we have different skills, and it's not going to look the same because we were all created differently.
It's interesting you said that because I think about the cognitive authority, and they get to determine, what is standard English, what is accepted, and all these basically a lot of the culture of power. And if I I seek wisdom, because education and wisdom is two different things. My grandmother used to always tell me, she passed last year, and she used to always say, um, sometimes you could be so educated, you nothing but an educated fool. And so helping me to get wisdom and discernment and to understand that sometimes in education and intelligence, they try to complicate things to make it seem deeper than what it is. But it's to confuse you, right? It's to really to lock out a lot of people who this society was not meant for. Yeah, we have what, 30, 27 amendments or however many amendments it is, but it contradicts that document that they say is sacred. And so back to what you were saying, we've been conditioned since starting elementary school, really, and prior to that, from television and media, on who we are and what is success and what does it look like. And so you see a lot of women of color striving, or just people of color, period, striving for this this illusion, right? The game of life in America, it's a game that's really unwinnable because it's an illusion. And so hearing you say that for me is just like, oh, it's music to my ears, because those are the conversations I'm having with people. Like, how do we unlearn a lot of these behaviors and ways of being that has come out of us trying to survive in a system that was not built for us, that's very oppressive toward us, but that we're striving to actually like be a part of, which really doesn't want us to be a part of. So I think that's what came up as you said that for me. How do you evaluate what you learned in school? And then how do you utilize your formal education in your everyday life?
You know, I that's a great question. If I'm being completely honest and transparent, I value my education. I was exposed to just things that because of my childhood that I didn't experience, things about our people, our history. I remember sitting in my first, African American history class and just being feeling so defeated because I didn't understand, you know, our experience. I didn't understand or know about Black Wall Street. And, I didn't understand anything, Juneteenth, all of those things I didn't learn till 2011. And
Mm.
so I also value, just being exposed to different things. But, if I'm being honest, especially your undergrad, I think it's this elitist bull crap that sometimes is not necessary, right? Because there's all types of environments that we can learn in, right? Especially today, and this day and age, you have technology, you have YouTube and Google. And it's like if you have the desire to learn, the tools are out there with you. And I'm really thinking about what you said again, for a system that is not set up for us to succeed. I had a really great experience in college. I was exposed to some professors that changed my life. But I went to college knowing that my education did not mean that I was going to be successful. Right. And if you look at the ROI of especially with college being so expensive for most people, it's a decision that you should not enter into very lightly. But I really learned and value the relationships that I established in the exposure to different cultures and different ideologies more than I do the formal education. Now, with my education and how I apply it, I work in the government. So I graduated with my degree in political science. I work in the government. I have my own, which is just very new, HR business. So I apply more of my knowledge of the law. And I think that also after, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I was left asking myself, okay, what is my place in this world? Where can I make my contribution? And for me, it was always education, right? And again, not just always traditional or formal education, but just knowledge. And so that's also what's really important to me, as I'm passionate about political reform, but also being mindful of the system wasn't set up for us, right? So then you have that challenge of how do you transform a system that wasn't set up for us to be a part of. So I think that, being able to have my degree, it sometimes just gives you a seat at the table, right? Because again, we live in this society that wants us to have all of these check boxes to belong, right? And so I firmly believe that while I had over 12 years of experience, I mean, my boss even told me when they hired me at the state, like they were impressed with my transcripts and my degree. And it's just like, okay, that got me here, but it's a lifetime of learning and working that's what I'm applying to my job, if I'm answering your question.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. So I'm going to move us into our second set of questions. And just curious, what lessons have you learned from your career?
Um, Corporate America is racist. Black women especially have such a hard time being stereotyped as combative, difficult to work with. And for a long time, because I stayed silent and I tried so hard to assimilate to that culture, I thought it was me. I questioned my intelligence. Okay, well, do I have an attitude? I mean, if this is what's being said to me. But it wasn't until I finally started saying, I can't make them happy, right? That I realized and started talking to other Black women how, like, widespread this is in corporate America. Again, what's professional? Showing up to work. It's like, if you don't have this set of clothes, or if you don't behave in this way, then you're not a culture fit. Well, the culture, who gets to decide what the culture is? And so I think, I don't think I know corporate America is racist. It's not a safe space for Black women. Um, and I also learned that a lot of times people want you to dumb yourself down to make them feel better, right? They don't want you to shine. And so it's this constant game of feeling like you're fighting against two different things, right? Like you're fighting against the system, right? And then you're fighting against your coworkers sometimes and your leadership, because I've had people, oh, well, you didn't have to do all that. You worked too hard. Just slow down. And it's like, well, why do I have to slow down? Why do I have to change who I am? And so that's really what I've learned about corporate America. I'm lucky, I do have a job. I work from home. I'm in a positive work environment now, but a lot of my experiences, and they weren't honestly what I feel about corporate America.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And so when you show up in professional spaces as a strong Black woman, how are you received?
Oh, wow. That's really, in the past, I have not been received well. Again, it was, when you question something, are trying to probe people to understand their process and the rationale behind their process. And, or when you call out, even in a nice way, kind way, a mistake, it's always turned against you. I'll never forget, in my previous job, I was in a recruiting position, and I had a lot on my plate. The workload was that I was responsible for was double that of what I was handling. I remember reaching out to my boss at the time, telling her, like, hey, I'm struggling, I need some support. And her response literally was like, oh, well, it's a difficult time. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. And fast forward, I made a mistake. I'll never forget, I had made a mistake. And, I'm all about, taking responsibilities and owning your actions. And I remember, her just being on the phone belittling me, like, well, what were you thinking? And, how could you do this? And I said to her, because I'm human, I made a mistake. These are the steps that I took to resolve the mistake. This is how I'm going to prevent the mistake from happening, right? So at that point, what else could I do? It wasn't that I was saying, oh, well, Sally did this. And, it was like, hey, this was my mistake. And she just kept saying, like, you know, I just don't understand. I just don't understand how you could do this. And this is the same woman who literally I'd been cleaning up her work for the year that she had been there. And so she actually left to go on vacation that next day. And I turned in my resignation, and I made sure to not let anything drop while she was gone. But when she came back that Monday, she didn't have a team because I had quit.
Mm. Mhm.
And so I think that is the challenge. I do find in my current role, and maybe it's because it's the state and the systems and it's a lot different. They are very receptive, and they're so I had my director actually tell me, we are lucky to have you here. We love your suggestions. And that to me was like, oh, okay, it is okay to say this is not efficient. This is not, this is wasteful. It all depends on your leadership and the culture. And I'm happy that I'm in that position now, but it's definitely hasn't been received well. And, it's just when I talk to other Black women, it's almost verbatim. Like, you think we're all telling the same story.
Right, right. And I think just to add to what you're saying, when I'll just say white women are not, when it's hard to receive or to celebrate the person's genius that, or just their talent, they get threatened, and a lot of times somehow some tears come out, and they don't realize even with those tears you get further you're being oppressed, because it's like, I didn't do anything wrong. You want us to speak up and tell you how can we be better, but when we do, you take offense instead of saying. Usually when I get feedback, my thing is like, okay, how can I work to incorporate what they're saying to make me a better leader? I've been in experiences where the women have gotten offended, and then that became just another layer of oppression on me. And so really learning to be like, I'm not wearing any more masks. I'm showing up as my true authentic self. And in that, I'm celebrating the genius in everybody, because we all were born with something unique about us and distinctive. And if no one ever pours into you or helps to cultivate that spirit, you're walking around with these masks on thinking that I have to show up because this is what they say to be successful. This is what you must do, and you're not calling out the things that are happening that are chipping away at your spirit, chipping away at your work ethic, all the things that help you show up and shine. And so just hearing you say that really made me think about those instances where even when you try to speak out in love, right, people get threatened, and then that turns into, now you're the problem. Or if you do make a mistake, they will forget about all their mistakes, but they will chime in on that one thing and keep harping on it. And you're like, like you said, I've saved your butt a few times, and we're humans, we're going to make mistakes. That's a part of life, right? So thank
Right.
you.
And we don't get to cry.
Nope.
We
Mm-mm.
don't get to cry, but I'm so tired of the duck tears. And
Yeah.
anyway.
So do you play down your strengths? How and why?
Wow. I think absolutely. I think I'm still struggling with that. And for all the reasons that we talked about, because, at the end of the day, right, I still have to provide for myself, right? And I am, I, it's so funny that you say this, because I've been thinking a lot about success and what success looks like. And I find myself not wanting to revert back to how I grew up, right? I remember just like it was yesterday, what it felt like to be homeless and what it felt like to be hungry or to want to have a shower. And so, unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic society that, you know, if we don't work, we can't survive. And so I think that because of my past experiences in the workplace, I have worked since I was 15 years old. But there was two experiences that really shaped me and transformed me. One was, me losing my job because someone said I had an attitude, right? And the second one was me resigning from the job that I just told you about. And so I think that a lot of times when I see something wrong, or I feel like there's a better way, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to be, perceived as, oh, she has an attitude, or she has a, she's combative. And so even in my job that I have now, I've only been with the state for little under 2 years. And I remember when I first started, you have this 6-month probation, and just like observing the process of the way we did things, and just like taking notes and being like, okay, this is completely archaic. We're probably wasting thousands of dollars on this, but staying silent until I pass my probation, right? Because, now at least, I have the union that's protecting me, right? So I know I just got to get by these 6 months, and then I can call out this and that. And I can do it in a professional way, but that's very scary, especially when in your past you've been, knocked down. And so I still find myself just being like, they don't value my voice, so I'm not going to say it. But then also, I am like, I'm done. Like you said, wearing a mask, I'm done. And so it's that constant like struggle of just not really just walking in what I'm trying to call my power, right? And even now, as I started my own business, an HR consulting firm, and just still struggling with that. Are you good enough, right? Are you even, talking to clients, right? Still kind of rejecting, like, oh, I need to have makeup on, I can't have my natural hair, right? I can't, just show up and let my work speak for itself, right? There's an extra tax for the Black woman in corporate America. And so I still, struggle with that. I think the majority of the time I'm learning to just be myself, but I would be lying if I said that even now I still kind of, if I'm in a meeting, someone says something, that I don't sometimes just stay silent.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you. Thank you for being transparent and sharing that, because I think a lot of us, you learn to read the environment and the situations you're in, and even though our intention may not to be to put on a mask, but to be able to survive in that environment, you may have to put on a partial mask. And so I appreciate you for sharing that. I'm going to move us into the third set of questions, and the first one is,
Okay.
in your opinion, what does the Black community need to unlearn?
Whoa. Um, that's a deep one, and I read it and I'm thinking about it. I think that we need to unlearn that this place is for us. I think that we need to unlearn a lot of the lies and the BS, that has been fed into us. Obviously being Black is not a monolith. We're all different, but a lot of us, still don't know our history, right? A lot of us still don't know our power. And we need to unlearn that this place is not for us, right? This society, we're not meant to be here. And so you can try as hard as you can to assimilate, right? But again, the structure it's not for you. And we're taught like, oh, the American dream, if you work hard, but that is malarkey, right? Because the system, the structure is set up for those of us who have privilege, right? And so I think that to me is the most important thing, but I think that there's a lot of things for us to unlearn. But stop trying to assimilate and be a part of something that is not meant for you.
I like that. Thank you. Um, what do they need? What do we need to learn? What is something that we need to learn?
Whew. Um, our power. I think we also need to learn that it is this capitalistic BS about like where our dollars need to go. Like we need to learn about financial success and financial freedom. And like it's not in chasing the next pair of Jordans or this or that, right? Like about how to save our money, right? How to invest our money, how to have financial freedom for ourselves, right? And to stop lining the pockets of these people who don't care about us. And we need to learn that we have to care for ourselves and our family and start working together instead of against each other. You know, that to me, I think in this last year, as I've really started trying to speak out and educate myself, sometimes our people, right? They're our biggest challenge, right? And if we could just work together, we've seen the power and the beauty of us working together, but also again, right? Because they know our power when we are together. They're constantly looking at ways to divide us. And it's just like, I really wish people would open their eyes, even in some of these memes that you see, like what the message is about Black people and Black culture. It's like, it's very divisive and very degrading. And so we just need to unite
Yeah.
and walk in our truth and our power.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was working on a piece prior to us starting the session today, talking about the ways that we are, divided in these different groups. And if you really look back at the history, a lot of the indigenous populations and the Black diaspora, we are all connected and family and don't realize it. We have the similar troubles and struggles, and trying to empower people to work in solidarity with each other, because I think the biggest issue for me right now is those kids in them cages. They still in the cages. I understand he only been in less than a week, but I feel like in the first 2 days, that should have been something that you signed off on to get them out of the cages, but they're not. And if we don't fight for these babies, next will be our babies. Because you see, they trying to push them back to schools with the pandemic. There's a couple of schools that were open. Kids are going home now. They caught COVID from school. It's being passed around. And they were saying that COVID schools were safer for the young people, maybe mentally sometimes, just to get out of that space. But at the same time, if they're going to catch COVID and bring it home and kill a grandparent, or they may pass away from it, I just I just feel like, as I listen to what you were saying, is we have to learn to work together, because it's one person, that idea of individuality, which capitalism is based off of, um, that's not what our communities, that's not part of our history. We were the village approach, the whole village. Everybody came with their talents, their gifts, and they did their thing. I didn't try to get over in your lane and work in corporate America, or work in the, state. I know I'm gonna work in the classroom, or I'm gonna create an educational experience somewhere, but that's my lane. I'm not gonna try to, yeah, I can learn those skills, but if that's not where I'm supposed to be, it's not going to be successful anyway. And so really working to figure out, how do we get beyond that individualistic mindset to think back, how do we all come up together, instead of just me making it out and not going back over to check on the people that's still there.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you. And then the last question in that set is, how are you unlearning and learning in your everyday life?
Ooh, I'm really trying to one educate myself, read not reading, but listen to audiobooks, learning about our culture, learning about our history, learning about our experiences, really understanding the laws that are still unfortunately governing us as long as we live in this land. Just really trying to immerse myself in that, and also cultivating relationships with people who are different than me, but that inspire me, and learning from them, and just accepting and embracing failure. I think that that's really how you learn and grow. For a long time, I felt like if you fail, it was this reflection of who you are. But I now know that, I have to fail in order to really succeed and move forward. And it's a part of the journey. And I also think that as far as learning, just really loving myself and tapping into figuring out who I am, right? And trying to heal from things that have shaped me, right? Because I remember when I used to work with the youth at church, and I would pray over these young ladies, and speak these things over their life. And I had a moment where I said, you know, Kimba, you're a phony, right? Because you are not even living out the things that you pray and you speak into existence for them. And so I took a step back, and I just have really been on this journey of, honestly, you know, in therapy to learn, right? So how can I be a better woman? I think that we're always going to have trauma, but and if I really want to change the world, right? If I really want to make a difference, first of all, I need to learn who I am as a woman, as a friend, as a daughter. I need to learn what my boundaries are, and what do I want, right? Because for so long, right, I thought that I wanted what I was socialized to believe was necessary. And so that's where I am right now. I'm learning in so many different ways, learning about myself, learning about different cultures, right? And just again, I think the most important thing, which was so hard for me and I still struggle with, is admitting what I don't know. To say, like, hey, I don't know this, right? Because especially I think when you think about things like that are related to like Black history and Black culture, and other, the indigenous experience, and civil rights. I now can say I feel like I have a good foundation of knowledge, but I didn't always. And so how do I enhance that knowledge, right? I have to just admit, like, hey, you know what, would you explain that to me? Or hey, can you direct me? Or you know just being just relentless in learning and just admitting what I don't know is really important for me.
Thank you. That is a lot. That's a lot that you just said, and I think that's a powerful place to start for people, because you have to just start with your own self, take an inventory of yourself. And I like that you shared that you were teaching the young girls and you had to check yourself, like, wait a minute, I'm in a way, and I've been there too, where I felt like I was a hypocrite because I'm saying this and I know this, but I'm not living this way. And although I may have hidden that from although I may have hidden that from people, because you can put on these masks and we can show up like we have it all together, and I've been there. It's not until you take the opportunity to really stop and really take an introspective look at yourself. How am I showing up? How am I treating people? How am I responding? And I knew for a long time I was reacting. Um, Same here with the childhood trauma. And my thing was I would put on armor and be tougher and show up to try to be tough so that I couldn't get more, so more trauma wouldn't come my way. But in that, that was harmful, not just for myself, because I was repressing what I was going through. And so that was just getting pushed further down. And so you get triggered at times. Then also you start to project that onto other people. And so when I really look back at times, I did that a lot. And so I think in the last probably 6 years is when I really started to work on how am I showing up? How can I be better? How can I leave people better than when I found them? So thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that. So I'm going to move us into our final set of questions. And the first one is, the first kind of phrase is share anything you're doing to help others unlearn to learn.
Uh-huh. So I this year I started a YouTube channel focused on civic engagement. Really, you know, I really want people to understand what's at stake when they vote, but I also think that specifically Black people, we have been brainwashed to think that, we need to vote Democratic, right? We need to vote this way. And I just really want people to understand, the process of voting and civic engagement. And so I started the YouTube channel for that. I recently, in June, started a nonprofit organization, and my goal is to have an education center here in Lodi that is catered to children that are at a lower socioeconomic disadvantage. In Lodi, we only have 1.64 African percentage of African Americans. So it is really important for me to advocate, just to start, for a place where these kids that are have less than still have access to the best, from STEM, speech and debate, all of the things that are in the white schools here in Lodi, but that they don't get because they live on the other side of the track. And then I also started my own HR consulting firm, and my goal is to be able to help primarily Black businesses with their HR support, startups, help them, and just continue to work on political campaigns and provide HR support. So those are the things that I'm currently working on and still trying to get myself together.
Awesome. You're doing some amazing things. So have you taken any action to advocate for the unlearning to learn process? I know you talked about the YouTube, but any specific action?
Right now, I think that, I moderate an anti-racism group for my town. That's been a real challenge for me because it is exposed to me some things that I still need to work on and I need to clean up. And I think that it's can be very dangerous, right? When you are not aware of everything that is at stake and you try to teach others. And I
Mhm.
think for me, that was the realization that I had with the anti-racism group in my town was is that wait a minute, there's a lot of ignorance here. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean with a negative connotation. I just mean like we don't know. And so I think for me right now, I have to kind of find my lane. And it's
Mhm.
like, so my action of unlearning is really trying to pour into our community and explain to them about voting, right? And like what we need to do in these next 2 years to get some of these officials out that don't care about us, that don't care about our struggle, and to encourage our people to know like what is affecting you and to know what's going to affect your son and your daughter and what's going to affect them when they go to school. But I had to kind of take a step back from the anti-racism work because I still need to learn and I don't want to do any more harm to my people as I am unlearning some of the white supremacist ideology that I have and some of the lies that have been instilled in me. I'm not necessarily the right person at this time for that journey.
Mhm. Well, I have followed some of the posts from that page and seen the work that you all are doing, which I think it was I was very brave, and I really was impressed in your commitment to that, especially in 2020. Was able to chime in, but seeing you go out and protest and how you all were met um, by the other side, but then also um, not seeing law enforcement really do anything to kind of protect you all. I really saw in your post some of what my grandmother talked about them doing in the 60s and stuff. I see that you had that, and I know what you mean about sometimes it's like, okay, let me focus a little bit because then you have your hands in all these pots and you may be spread thin. And so you really want to be able to show up 100% in whatever you're doing, but I do appreciate the commitment that you made to that. I didn't see a lot. I see a lot of people make posts and talk about what should be doing, but they're not going out and actually creating action. And so I admired that you stood up last year and was like, you had had enough. Especially living in Lodi, I know a little bit about Lodi and just the things that take place there. But I was very impressed in the way that you responded and the way that you connected with community to share. One, in some of the posts, you would like, no, this is actually, somebody might take off on a tangent, and you bring them back to be like, no, this is actually what was happening, and just taking that time to explain and express like the feelings that you were experiencing. I think that's always good because people think you can go out and you're going to feel good and that's it. Oh, I did this good thing, but they don't realize that for a lot of us, you take those feelings home, and so you still are trying to process while other things are happening on the world stage, and you're like, is this work or am what I'm doing, is it even making, is it in vain, or is it making some kind, at least a little small dent, right? And so I just wanted to share out my just I applaud you for what you're doing in Lodi and what you've done with that page. So are there any other issues that the Black community faces that you've advocated for?
Yeah, I really have tried my best to bring awareness to like COVID and looking at the numbers and how it's impacting our people, the Black and Brown community, and just knowing had this been the other way, that the action that was taken by our government would have been different. I think that I also have tried to bring awareness to the disparities in our education system that our Black children are receiving. Um, and then finally, I've really tried to bring awareness to the issue that happened with me being denied my teaching credential. And that's another story for another day. But it is the way that the California Commission of Teaching Credentials has set it up, the denial of certificates, it primarily is affecting, marginalized communities, Black and Brown people who don't have the financial access to go and advocate for um, their certificate to be able to teach. And so if we don't have teachers in our schools that look like our kids, we know that representation matters.
Yep.
And so you know I mean, that's something that's really really important to me, but it's also, if I'm being really honest, Rika, it's a source of pain still, because our children, our little Black girls and our boys need to see someone that looks like them fighting for them, telling them that they are enough and they matter. But then if they're making it harder for us to go to school and get an education and get a degree and to get into the classroom, then our babies are being left behind, right? And I'm sorry, I had a great mentor. She is white, she is powerful, she is amazing, but nothing will compare to another woman that looked like me telling me that I was enough. And
Yes.
that's what I want for future generations. And that's really, really important to me. I don't think that I've done enough because I'm still carrying that trauma of not being able to be there, feeling like, okay, I don't have access, right? I'm not a teacher, so how do I really, really advocate for the teachers, right? How do I really make a difference from them? Like, I'm still trying to figure that out. But I still feel it will come in political reform, but just centered around our education system.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I think just being aware of, making yourself aware of, I know that I'm still impacted by this, that I'm still triggered by this at times, but starting that process of, okay, how do I manage that? And how do I heal from that so that I can go and advocate and speak and be effective in what I'm doing, so that we start to see more teachers of color in the classrooms that our kids can not only identify, but connect with and build strong relationships. Because when I look back at my educators, and I didn't have a lot of educators of color, but even the white ones, it was the relationship building piece that did it for me. If they didn't take the time to build a relationship, I had no connection with them. And 9 times out of 10, I probably was only taking about half of what they were saying to me
Mm.
away from that, if that. And when I look at those people that I was successful with, a lot of them I'm still connected with. I may email, send a card or something every few years. Um, but it changed my trajectory on life some way because of that relationship. And I think that's what the schools have gotten away from. We've gotten away from relationship building and we focus on reforms. I just need to get you guys to be able to pass this test. So we're only going to focus on, instead of actually developing one character and identity, all of those different things that should be happening that a lot of times don't happen. And as an educator, I know that our teachers are overworked a lot of times and are not supported in the way that they should be. We fail to address, I feel like the system fails to address the elephant in the room. We talk about diversity, we talk about equity and inclusion, but on the surface, we don't want to dig deeper. We don't want to make people uncomfortable because they have privileges. And if we do make them uncomfortable, then they have things in place, unions and different things, which I think in a sense are good, but in another sense, like if the kids are suffering, if the purposes of schools are to educate and equip our kids for how they're going to, live in society beyond that and contribute to society, we are failing. Because if we're moving to, we are in a technological society. We are not teaching kids coding, but yet most kindergartners can work an iPad or a phone or some type of electronic better than adults. We are failing. We are failing our young people. So thank you for sharing all of the amazing things you're doing to advocate for the community and for our young people. I want to highlight just a few of the things that I heard you say in the conversation, um, and that we need to learn our true power, the true power that we possess. We need to learn how to be financially free, how to invest our wealth. We're following the system that's get. We have to learn how to sow into people's lives, plant those seeds. When I think about a lot of the educators I had who planted seeds at the time, I didn't realize what was happening. But I can look back now and say, oh, Coach Hill taught me that, or this person taught me that. I I see that it's important for us to continue to do that for our young people. I also heard you say learning about our history and experiences to forge a better path forward. We can learn so many lessons from history that we don't repeat, but a lot of times we don't take the time to study. I heard you say accept and embrace failure to learn and grow. When you look at science, I mean, scientists become renowned based on all how many times they failed. They will fail hundreds of times before they get it right. But that's what it's in the failures, right? That you it's the learning occurs. And then lastly, one thing that I heard you say was loving yourself and learning who you are. The world has told us for years who we were or who we are or what we should be instead of us actually tapping into what's inside of us that will, as we cultivate those gifts and that purpose, will actually come to fruition. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and just being just your authentic self. And so, if there's one last tip, piece of advice that you would like to share with the listeners, the last voice they hear will be yours.
Thank you. So I'll be very quick. First of all, I want to say thank you for your time and all of the work that you are doing in the community and just lifting me up today when I, jumped on this call and feeling scared and just, supporting me, just having your face in the group and having people that I know that have so much knowledge has been great. And the final thing that I would say to everyone is that you are enough. You have skills, you have power, and it's never too late. If you Whatever you want to do in life, just do it. And it will be hard, and you will have hurdles, and you will stumble. But I'll never forget my professor, Dr. Steve Graham, who is my friend today, said, to me the first day of my class, my first college class, be relentless in your pursuit of excellence and never make provisions for failures. That was on my cap when I graduated. And it's with me every day. You are enough and you can accomplish anything except for maybe being president, unless if you're over the age. And so that's what I would say. That'd be my final thought.